Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Today's battle is kind of unusual. You could be forgiven for being slightly confused because the title of the video, Silent Hunter, probably made you think this was going to be submarine gameplay. And yet, that's a Fletcher. Although you probably also figured that one out from the thumbnail, which almost certainly didn't make things any less confusing. This is Marder Finn. He's from Finland, as his name would suggest, and he's in the US Navy Tier 9 destroyer, the Fletcher. Now, there's some bad news here. Actually, there's quite a bit of bad news. First, he's in a Tier 9 destroyer, and this is a Tier 10 battle. Second, there is a carrier in play, although it's only Tier 8, but Tier 8 aircraft can spot you just as well as Tier 10 aircraft. There are 2 submarines in play on each team, and he's the only destroyer on his team. The only real good news here is that there does not appear to be any radar in play, which is very unusual in a Tier 10 battle. I mean, there might be. There's a Minotaur on the enemy team, and he might have radar, but probably doesn't. Probably going to have smoke. Radar Minotaurs are about as common as destroyer captains that don't suicide in the cap circle in the first 2 minutes of the match. I mean, it's entirely possible, it's just extremely unlikely. Now, unlike a lot of the videos that I've been putting up over the last couple of weeks, particularly World of Warships, this is not going to be one of those wham bam, thank you ma'am, seat of the pants, roller coaster rides. We're in this one for the long haul, because Marder Finn is not your typical destroyer player. He's certainly not your typical Fletcher player, who would already be opening fire on the enemy Eudaloy that he's just spotted, and is comfortably able to outspot because, you know, Russian destroyer. You see, Marder Finn is the thinking man's destroyer player. Most destroyer captains in this position would have already opened up on that enemy destroyer because, oh, enemy destroyer, must sink it. And generally, that is what you should do, but not at the cost of losing your own ship. Because the only other member of the team in a position to shoot at the Eudaloy that he just spotted was the Takahashi, the Japanese light cruiser. And he did shoot at, and mostly miss, the Eudaloy. And if Marder Finn had joined in, he would now be the only person in a position to shoot at the Eudaloy. The Eudaloy would be able to shoot back at him, and that would almost have been a fair fight. And you don't want to be getting into fair fights if you can possibly avoid it. In fact, it wouldn't have been that fair, because while the Fletcher is a decent gunboat, the Eudaloy is better. Plus, it wouldn't have been a fair fight anyway, because everybody else on the Eudaloy's team over here would have been able to see and shoot at him. And yes, those were torpedoes. And I'm pretty sure they weren't launched by the Italian battleship up there, the Vittorio Veneto, so that would definitely not have been a fair fight. He'd be getting shot up by the Eudaloy, probably the Vittorio Veneto, and whatever launched those torpedoes, oh, there we go. The enemy team have a Takahashi of their own, and that is a very dangerous light cruiser. So not shooting was a very, very smart move. The team have just suffered their first casualty, by the way. The enemy Incomparable has sunk the friendly Minotaur. The matchmaking in this battle is actually quite balanced. Both teams have a Takahashi, both teams have a Minotaur. Well, both teams had a Minotaur. Neither team have radar, which is, again, highly unusual, not just because it's unusual that there's no radar in a Tier 10 battle, but it's extremely unusual that when radar cruisers are present, the matchmaker doesn't stick them all on one team. Because, I mean, that happens all the time, doesn't it? You join a battle, there are 2 radar cruisers, and they're both on the enemy team. Because it's usually far too hard for the World of Warships matchmaker to understand that if you have 2 radar and 2 teams, 2 divides by 2. Maybe 1 on each team? Nah. Maths is hard. The matchmaker should probably have just been a stripper. Eudaloy still spotted. Again, he's the only one on the team that can actually do anything about it. But rather than give his position away, because the Takahashi is still out there, somewhere, instead he's going to launch the torpedoes. Now, because he is spotting the Eudaloy, the second the friendly Takahashi is able to put shots into him, that's exactly what he does, which is very welcome. Unfortunately, I mean, it's difficult to complain about it, but he is now manoeuvring, which means those torpedoes are going to miss. and his engine's out and he's on fire. So he's probably going to start smoking up. Yep, there it goes. Now are you going to shoot him? No. No, he isn't. That would be incredibly stupid for a couple of reasons. One we've already covered. Everybody else on the enemy team would be in a position to shoot at him. And the Eudoloi would too. He would be spotted. The Eudoloi is not. The Vittorio Veneto would see him shooting, which would allow everybody, including the smoked up Eudoloi, to shoot back for at least 20 seconds. So, yeah, let's not give our position away. Hence the title of today's video, Silent Hunter. It's nice and highly unusual to see a destroyer captain exercising his thinking muscles as much as his trigger muscles. I mean, don't get me wrong, those videos, and we've been seeing quite a few of them recently, where the destroyer captain, or any other captain, goes in balls deep, all guns blazing, against the odds, and comes out of it with a sliver of health remaining, but victorious. I mean, they're exciting and they're fun to watch, but they're not necessarily smart. I mean, sometimes you don't have any choice, and it's absolutely the right thing to do. But it's the wrong thing to do now. Instead, he knows the Eudoloi's in the smoke screen. There go the torpedoes, because smoke screens are torpedo magnets, and there's his first kill. The scores are roughly even. Both teams have 2 kills. Marder Finn just claimed his first kill on the enemy Eudoloi. And then, just as quickly, the Minotaur that he just spotted nails the friendly Republic. And the enemy team go ahead. Further ahead on points, 1 kill up. The enemy team are going to be doing a lot of that throughout the course of this battle. Marder Finn has taken no damage thus far. He hasn't even been spotted. Although there are enemy aircraft coming in, he's disabled his AA guns. Press P, by the way, to turn off your AA guns and secondaries. He's motoring away from those aircraft, does not want to get spotted. Because here's the thing. In the last 5 minutes of a battle, a destroyer on full health is way more dangerous than anything else on full health. I mean, everybody should be trying to ensure that they lose as little health as possible, while of course still trying to get stuck in, using your health effectively to sink enemy ships. But in the last 5 minutes of the battle, that's when you have to start taking chances more often than not. And if you only have 1,000 health left, that limits the number of chances you can take, because destroyers do not have a huge amount of health to begin with. So, nursing your health pool, not taking unnecessary risks. I mean, by all means, if the situation calls for it, take necessary risks, but calculate the odds that you're going to survive taking necessary risks. And if you're probably not, maybe it's not necessary to take the risk. I mean, sometimes you absolutely definitely have to lose your ship in order to take a couple of enemies with you, or even one enemy with you, if it's an important enemy, and it's likely to guarantee a win. But this is not the time. There are still 18 ships in play, neither team has a substantial points lead, and neither team has a cap advantage, and there's still more than half of the battle to go. He's paying very careful attention to that Minotaur though, who is now smoking up as he rounds the corner in pursuit of the friendly Takahashi, whose first torpedo salvo has completely missed. Marder Finn taking a quick look at the Takahashi. He's calculating the odds here. When is it going to be worth blowing his cover? There, the Minotaur just got clapped. Surely he's about to die. Now it is safe, while the Takahashi is occupied, to unload on it and probably kill it. And then everything goes horribly pear-shaped, because the friendly Takahashi, who just clapped the bejesus out of the Minotaur, ends up dying to the Minotaur. The friendly sub up ahead is about to get depth charged by the Takahashi, saved at the last moment by Marder Finn. The sub's safe, the Takahashi gets torpedoes away, and the Minotaur now has nothing better to shoot at, and he's recovered almost all of the health that he just lost to the Takahashi's torpedoes. He's now shooting at Marder Finn. So that went horribly, horribly wrong. I mean, it was a calculated risk, and the odds looked good. The friendly Takahashi clapped the shit out of the Minotaur, and yet somehow still managed to find a way to lose to him. You would not have expected that to happen. Well, okay, maybe we should. And yet it still always seems to take us by surprise when somebody manages to screw up as horribly as that. He was about to torpedo the Minotaur's smokescreen and then spotted him at the last second and cover around the other side of the island. The Minotaur dropping smoke and diving into cover actually saved Marder Finn here, because you do not want to be getting into gunfights with Minotaurs in a destroyer of any description, particularly when your engine's already been knocked out. But Even though things could have gone horribly wrong, and certainly didn't go as well as he was expecting, he did save the submarine from the Takahashi, and he didn't die to the Minotaur, which he wasn't expecting to have to deal with, because how the hell did the friendly Takahashi manage to screw that up? Fortunately, the cap circle that the Minotaur was in the process of flipping is safe, because one of the friendly Amagis took him out, although the other friendly Amagi did just get torpedoed by an enemy submarine. Further ahead on kills and points, and it's here where we start to get a little bit of drama in chat, as the friendly Mogami neutralises the enemy Vladivostok, equalising the kills, if not the scores, although the cap circles are looking pretty good. Mardafin's team is the only one that actually have a cap circle, and he's in the process of flipping a second. But the Amagi who died to the enemy submarine is not impressed with the friendly submarine over on his side of the map. A friendly submarine who is only now, 30 seconds after a friendly battleship gets sunk by an undetected enemy submarine, the friendly submarine is now using his submarine surveillance consumable. So you can kind of understand the frustration that the friendly battleship player is experiencing, even if his behaviour in chat is distinctly unfriendly and completely inexcusable. I mean, you understand the frustration, but that doesn't excuse the, well, yelling at and insulting somebody in chat might make you feel better for a few seconds, but it's certainly not going to make them suddenly start playing better. If anything, they're probably more likely to suddenly start playing worse, if not doing it on purpose just to piss you off more, or because they're now not playing as they respond to your comments in chat. And the Amagi player then compounds his sins by also now asking the enemy team to report. There he is up ahead there, the U-2501, who's about to die to depth charges. Oh, hang on a second. See the battle message there? Oh, this is delicious irony. The friendly carrier, okay, it's bad news because it's the friendly carrier, but he just got taken out by an airstrike from a cruiser. Oh, there's some justice for you. The friendly U-2501 did just die to depth charges. Yeah, things are not looking good. There's only 4 of them left against 6 enemies. The enemy team are now firmly ahead on points, although Mardafin's team do have more cap circles. And the enemy Amagi player was just compounding his sins there in chat by demanding that the enemy team report the U-2501. Why would the enemy team want to report him? It's in their best interests that he plays badly. What's that, Mr. Amagi? One of the 2 submarines on your team can't tell his arse from his elbow or find his own arse in the dark without the aid of a map and a flashlight? Yeah, we're perfectly fine with that. That's no problem. Oh shit, Mod has been spotted. Bloody aircraft. They're a menace. And here come the... Golden Lion, by the way, is incredibly fast on the trigger with his airstrikes. Now, the airstrikes can't spot you. The enemy carrier already did that, but look at how quick that Golden Lion was on the trigger. I mean, that was close. Fortunately, nobody's in a position to spot him, unless the carrier sends some aircraft back. And he is now flipping this cap circle, and if he needs it, his smoke is ready to go. He still has 3 charges. That's the good news. The bad news is he only has 2 surviving teammates left against 6 enemies, and while they do have the cap advantage, the enemy team are quite far ahead on points. Now he is flipping this cap circle, keeping an eye on the fact that there are aircraft behind him and therefore heading to this side of the cap. He should be fine. Notice that his radio position finding indicator just flipped. The closest enemy is no longer behind him. He's now off to the left-hand side. There's the Golden Lion. But those 2 are now the closest enemies. So he's about to flip this cap circle, but it's almost certainly not going to stay flipped for very long, because at least 3 enemy ships are right on the border of this cap circle. The trick now, of course, is to stay alive long enough to turn the cap advantage into a points lead. And the team, you know, such as it is... Oh dear. Right, yes. I was about to say the team's positioning, such as it is pretty good, because there's at least 1 ship between every enemy and an available cap. And then, of course, the Amagi, because he was getting focused down. just died. So now there's only 2 of them left alive against 6 enemies. The enemy team are 200 points ahead. The Balaos managed to get a kill. Unfortunately, it wasn't that golden lion. But the enemy team are about to equalise the caps. Again, getting spotted would be suicidal. So he's getting the torpedoes away, and there's an excellent chance of a kill here. That is an extremely low health incomparable. And he might get lucky and get the Vittorio Veneto as well. He's thinking about using his guns here, maybe get a fire on the incomparable, or at the very least force him to blow his damage control. Again, calculated risk. The incomparable is shooting. He has Cunningham as his commander, judging by the blue tracers. He's managed to score torpedo hits on the Vittorio Veneto. Oh no, the Golden Lion's shooting at him as well. Although the second set of torpedoes look pretty good, he's only going to need 1 to take the incomparable out. He's got him. And notice that when he chose to start shooting, he did it just as he was about to duck into cover. Again, he's covering his ass here. Of course, again, the Golden Lion incredibly quick on the trigger with those airstrikes. Here it comes. Oh, skip bombs from the carrier as well. He's dodged those. There's the airstrike. He's able to avoid the airstrike. Even with his engine knocked out, he does have the last stand skill. So he's able to keep moving and manoeuvring, even with an engine disabled. He has the damage control ready to go. Didn't use it, didn't need it. He actually did not lose an awful lot of health there, despite having 3 enemy ships and 2 airstrikes on him. The scores are now basically dead even, with both teams in possession of 2 cap points. And we're now at the stage of the battle where you really do have to start taking chances. So it's a good job he did look after his health in the opening stages of the battle, and not throw it away unnecessarily. RPF is telling him that, yep, there it is, enemy submarine. Couple of shots out. Force the submarine to dive. Submarine is no longer spotting you. Now, if the enemy carrier is paying attention to the fact that he did just get spotted, he could be in a lot of trouble here. But right now, while things are not getting any better because the friendly sub just died, he's now the last ship on the team against 4 enemies, he needs to kill that submarine. RPF isn't going to be a huge amount of health. It's not going to point towards an undetected submarine, but judging by the oil slicks there, the submarine is right underneath him. There go the depth charges. There's the kill on the submarine. Now, that's good news, obviously. It's not great news, though, because it hasn't done anything to the points other than equalise them once again. The great news there was that despite the submarine spotting him, the enemy carrier appeared to have better things to do than use his aircraft to kill the last remaining ship on the enemy team. Oh well, certainly not going to complain. Now what the hell is the Vittorio Veneto doing? Because he's just sitting there. He's not moving. His engine isn't running. We could tell because Mardafin's torpedo aiming indicator is pointing straight at him. And he knows he's spotted because, I mean, it's been a long time since you actually had to spend captain skill points in order to get the "oh no, I am spotted" skill. And he knows that the only ship left on Mardafin's team is a destroyer, so torpedoes. Oh well, okay, fine. Certainly not going to complain. Torpedoes away, because it would be, you know, rude in the extreme to not torpedo a stationary battleship in open water. And there it goes. There's the Kraken unleashed. It's gone from 1 against 6 to 1 against 2. But one of those 2 is a carrier, and you're in a destroyer, and the other one is the Golden Lion. And as we've already seen, if you get spotted by that carrier's aircraft, that Golden Lion does not mess around with its airstrikes. And here come the carrier aircraft. I mean, it's fairly obvious where he is. He's flipping the cap. And the carrier is at least smart enough to know where to send the aircraft. And he has been spotted, and there's absolutely no sense in not using the anti-aircraft guns, although, you know, fat lot of good it's got. There's the Golden Lion strike. Yeah. And his shots. That Golden Lion was pretty good. Yeah, we're going to pop the smoke here. Now then, 40 seconds left. Choices, choices. He's got the torpedoes away against the Golden Lion. Does he slow to stay in the smoke, or does he motor on ahead to avoid getting shot at? Actually, you know what? Ooh, slowing down was the right idea. Oh, those torpedoes are looking pretty good. There's 1. There's 2. Now we could finish the Golden Lion off here. if he were to start shooting. But he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to win any harder than he's going to. And while it's unlikely that he's going to get spotted if he starts shooting because he is in a smokescreen, he absolutely doesn't need to do it because he's ahead on points. So he's going to do the hardest thing possible for a World of Warships player to do. Absolutely nothing. And just stay alive for the few seconds that it's going to take for him to win. Marder Finn in the USS Fletcher, in one of the most calculated and clever destroyer games that I have seen in a very, very long time. Kraken Unleashed, solo warrior, only 77,000 damage, but it was the right damage to the right targets at the right time. He didn't win alone, of course, although he kind of did because solo warrior, but we definitely have to give some credit here to, well, kind of depressingly, although completely unsurprisingly, the tier 8s on his team in this tier 10 battle, in particular the Amagi, who actually finished top on damage done, and no, not the one who was being an arsehole in chat, but also the Megami, an incredibly fragile tier 8 cruiser. The carrier did well, and of course props to the submarine, which wasn't tier 8, it was the tier 10 below, but also did very, very well. Although all of their best efforts would have been for absolutely nothing if it had not been for Marder Finn's cool, calculated, and superhumanly efficient use of the USS Fletcher. So congratulations on a thoroughly well-deserved win. Thanks very much for sending that one in, and I hope you all enjoyed it, because that's it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.